What if I told you that almost every country on Earth is in debt? Not poor countries, not failed states, but the richest nations in history. The United States, Japan, the United Kingdom, France, Italy, Canada, all in debt. Trillions of dollars in debt. Now here's the problem. Debt always has two sides. For every borrower, there must be a lender. For every debtor, there must be a creditor. So here's the question no one asks out loud. If every country is in debt, who exactly is everyone owing money to? Is it China? Is it billionaires? Is it banks? Is it future generations? Or is the answer far more uncomfortable than that? Tonight, we're going to follow the money, not the slogans, not the headlines, but the mechanism. And by the end of this video, you may realize that the global financial system is built on a paradox that cannot last forever. Before we can answer who the creditor is, we need to clarify something most people misunderstand. When a government says it is in debt, it does not mean the same thing as when you or I are in debt. You can't print money. Governments can. You can't roll over loans forever. Governments often do. And you can't legally force your children to pay your credit card bill. Governments can through taxes, inflation, and policy. So government debt is not about running out of money. It's about who controls the system and who absorbs the cost. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back, not decades, but centuries. Long before dollars, euros, or yen existed, debt came first. Thousands of years ago, in ancient Mesopotamia, farmers borrowed grain from temples. Kings borrowed silver from merchants to fund wars. When debts became unpayable, societies collapsed, or rulers wiped the slate clean through debt jubilees. Debt has always been political. Fast forward to medieval Europe. Kings were constantly broke. Wars were expensive. Armies didn't pay for themselves. So rulers turned to wealthy families, the Medici. In 1694, England was exhausted. War with France had drained the treasury. Taxes were already high. The crown was desperate. So Parliament approved something radical. A group of private investors would lend the government money in exchange for the right to create money. That institution became the Bank of England. For the first time in history, a government outsourced its money creation to a semi-private institution and agreed to pay interest on its own currency. This wasn't just borrowing. It was a transformation of power. Soon, other countries followed. France, the Netherlands, later, the United States. By the early 20th century, the modern system was born. Governments issued debt. Central banks manage currency. Private banks multiply money through lending. And the world runs on credit. Let's strip away the jargon. When a government needs money, it issues bonds. These bonds are IOUs. I promise to pay you back later, with interest. Who buys them? Banks, pension funds, insurance companies, foreign governments, central banks, sometimes the government itself. Yes, governments often owe money to themselves. This is where the paradox begins. Take the United States. Over half of U.S. government debt is owned domestically by U.S. institutions and the Federal Reserve. Japan, over 90% of its debt is owned internally. So are they really in debt the way people imagine? Or is something else happening? You've heard this line before. The U.S. owes China trillions. Sounds scary, but here's the truth. China holds less than 15% of U.S. Treasury debt, and those treasuries are assets for China. If the U.S. collapses, China's reserves collapse with it. This is not a master-creditor relationship. It's mutual dependency. China needs U.S. consumers. The U.S. needs cheap imports. Both need stable treasury markets. So China isn't the creditor of the world. Then who is? Here is the uncomfortable answer. The creditor is not a country, not a person, not a cabal. The creditor is the monetary system itself. Modern money is created as debt. Every new dollar, euro, or yen enters the economy because someone borrowed it, which means principal is created. Interest is not. To pay interest, more debt must be created. This makes perpetual expansion mandatory. No growth equals defaults. No defaults equals more debt. More debt equals more interest. More interest equals more growth required. This is not conspiracy. It's arithmetic For decades, this system worked. After World War II, massive growth, young populations, rising productivity, cheap energy, debt was manageable. Then things changed. Growth slowed, populations aged, productivity stagnated, inequality surged. But debt didn't stop growing. Governments borrowed to avoid pain. Central banks lowered interest rates. Eventually, rates hit zero, and then negative. Debt was no longer a tool. It became life support. In 2008, the global financial system nearly collapsed. Banks had created mountains of debt on top of debt. When it began to fall, governments stepped in. They didn't let the system fail. They absorbed private debt into public debt. Losses were socialized. Gains remained private. This is when government debt exploded. Not because governments were reckless, but because they were protecting the system itself. Central banks responded with quantitative easing, asset purchases, balance sheet expansion. They printed money, but mostly for financial markets. Stocks rose, assets inflated, wages stagnated. Debt didn't disappear. It just became invisible. Rome debased its currency. We dilute ours through inflation. Ancient empires collapsed under debt. Modern nations delay collapse through monetary tricks. The pattern is always the same. Debt grows faster than reality. Trust erodes. Currency weakens. Social tension rises. Reform or rupture. We're somewhere between steps 3 and 4. If governments don't repay debt, who pays? You do. Through inflation, taxes, lower services, currency devaluation. Debt is never erased. It is transferred. Takeaway 1. Governments aren't broke, but the system is fragile. Takeaway 2. Debt is not the danger. Unpayable debt is. Takeaway 3. The creditor isn't a country. It's a system that demands endless growth in a finite world. So if every country is in debt, and the creditor is the system itself, what happens when growth finally stops? History suggests the answer won't be gentled. If this video changed the way you see money, debt, or governments, like the video to support deep analysis. Subscribe for more financial history and hidden systems. And comment below, who do you think really pays for global debt? Because the future won't be decided by slogans, but by understanding how the system truly works. If you want, I can also rewrite this into shorts hooks, create thumbnail text, adapt it for USA audience retention, or turn it into a series script, part 1 to 3.